I did it. I did a live set with the modular synthesizer. It was at a small techno party called Debris in front of about 250 people. And when the organizer said, Oscar, would you like to do a DJ set or a live set? And I said, why not both? So later in the night, I did a DJ set as well. This process has been a few months in the making. I don't know if you recall some of the videos I did. I did that video with Circo. I did a few other videos related to it. And now let's just go through what I did, how I did it, how I set it up, and how I organize it. So if the detailed workings of a modular synthesizer setup don't really interest you, this video might not be for you. But if they do, buckle up. We're about to get nerdy. So this is what I show up to the live gig with. 3 boxes. First, the Oxi 1 sequencer. This is a thing that I hit play on and then everything else follows this clock, right? So this thing is like the master. It's the thing that drives the rhythm of everything else. Then there's the modular synthesizer. It's got a bunch of different functionalities, but most interestingly, it has this performance mixer, which means that all the sounds that I'm going to produce will pass through this, and then I can choose to bring in and out different sounds, kind of like a DJ would almost. I have several different sounds that I can mix and match. I'll go over them in a moment. But then also there is this Elektron analog rhythm MK2, which is a groovebox. It's got its own sequencer and 12 pads of sounds that can be individually turned on and off. So you can have just a hi-hat playing or just a particular percussion sound playing. But all of the sounds from this also pass through the performance mixer. And kind of interestingly, I've split out the sounds from this. Basically, you've got everything going to one channel except the kick drum. The kick drum goes to its own channel. The very first fader on the performance mixer, number 1, is the kick drum, because that's one of the elements that I'm going to want to bring in and out very often. Okay, so let's talk about the modular. What's in there? Like I said, here's the performance mixer. You've got all these little faders that can go up and down. And so this is sort of where a lot of my attention is going during the performance. I'm thinking of which combination of which elements am I bringing in, and I've got 5 voices. That's it. No more complexity than 5 things that can be in there at any given moment. And one of them, like I mentioned, is the kick drum. The kick drum can be brought up, can be brought down. I can choose whether it's either the kick drum from the analog rhythm coming off from the side, or whether it's the Shakmat battering ram. Battering ram, analog rhythm. In the analog rhythm, I'm using samples. I'm not using the synthesis engines right now. I'm basically using that technique from the groovebox video. Here, there's this little mixer called an Aikido mixer, which has 4 channels where these 2 kicks get summed together. One of the benefits of this little Aikido unit is that it can do side chaining. It can dip other signals a bit to get out of the way of the kick drum, and it makes the whole thing feel more like a professional track. If all your elements are responding slightly to each other, I mean, it just feels more alive and more considered. So that's channel 1, the kicks. Channel 2 is literally everything else from the groovebox. One of the cool things on the groovebox is that I've got these quick performance things. So I can add all these like reverbs and delays. I've also got this fill. But as you see, I can just mute all these different elements to create a totally different vibe. I've even got on one of the channels, this is going to seem a bit silly, but this is from 10 Rules of Techno. See the sample on the screen? So yeah, that's channel 2. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of expressive capability in just this. There's people who could do probably a whole live performance with just this box. And one of the things that I can do is I can have several kits and several different patterns in here so that at certain moments in my track, I can just change the feeling of the sound quite drastically by going to a different set of sounds on this box, right? So that's channel 1 and that's channel 2. Then we've got channel 3 and channel 4. These are both synthesizer voices that live inside of the Eurorack. And the notes, the sequence for them is coming out of the Oxi 1. So for example, if I hit play, you see here notes are being played. Those notes are going into something called the Oxi pipe here. And this Oxi pipe sends out gates and triggers. And so the voice on channel 3 is the Basimilus, going into a Mimeophone, going into a Steve's MS22 from Threetom Modular, another Belgian Eurorack creator, by the way. Let's remove the filter for now. So we get sounds like this. Can be either really tame or really gnarly. They can go through this delay, really noisy delay. And then you can bring in a resonant filter to turn it into something gorgeous. And it's a low pass and high pass filter at the same time. So I can sweep up. And now it sounds really high, like it's just a textural element, or really low and make it vibrate along underneath a kick. So this thing is often on bass duty for me. It's often making bass sounds, anything that lives in the lows. So these three units together, I would call them a synthesizer voice, right? A synthesizer voice is something you don't really hear very often in the digital world, but in the modular synthesizer world, you do, because you have to be quite intentional about what that includes. And it's very similar to my triangle method. There is some kind of a sequencing method, going into some kind of a sound generator, going into some kind of effects. And it gives me a lot of expressive shaping capabilities to get a lot of different types of musical material out of a fairly simple set of elements. And to give you the quickest review of these modules ever, the Basimilus, I loved it so much that I ordered 2 more units from the same provider like a few weeks after getting the Basimilus. The Mimeophone seems cool, but for what I'm trying to do with it, it's very noisy and unpredictable. I'm sure there's much more intricate, creative ways of using it, but in a live performance situation, I'm still finding that searching for sweet spots is not really doing it for me, and it's quite large. So let's see what the future of the Mimeophone is. And the Steve's MS22 is one of the MVPs of this rack. It's one of my favorite modules because it just feels so juicy and fat as you move the top knob. I like it so much that I've ordered another one for the top synthesizer voice. Let me make the shortest intermezzo, by the way, just to appreciate Threetom Modular, another Belgian modular creator. And I'm using his Steve's MS22 there, named after Tom's friend Steve. I love it when modular creators get very personal like that. And there's another module by him here called the Doppio, and let me tell you, the Doppio is the shit. What does the Doppio do? Well, it's basically just a saturation knob. It's got a saturation knob called the caffeine knob, and then it's just got a volume knob just below it. So when you crank the saturation, the volume doesn't change that much. It's just the fatness of the sound that changes. And so, for example, if you have a composition where you just have 2 very thin elements, but you feel like they're not bold enough, you know, you're in front of an audience and you want your 2 elements to hit a bit harder, all you have to do is crank the caffeine knob a little bit, and everything is suddenly going to be like, whoomp, fill up the box, you know? If you think about the 3-dimensional mixing box, imagine you've got 2 thin elements placed inside. Well, this thing sort of grows those elements out to fill the entire box, if that metaphor makes sense to you. Let me show you an example. And what you heard me tweaking there off screen is the Oxi Meta, which is like a DJ controls thing for the end of chain. So basically the entire mix goes into the Oxi Meta for these like trippy effects at the end of the signal chain. I can also just do filter sweeps and stuff like that. And then it goes into the Threetom Modular Doppio for that fatness. I've seen other artists use an Alto Boom or a Stimming's IMC mastering chain for this. It's like an end of signal chain saturator so that whenever you rock up to a big sound system, you know you're going to be able to deliver a sound that is fat no matter what. And this little Oxi Meta is also incredible because imagine you've got this loop going, right? Let's set it to filter. So you can scoop up the lows, just like in 10 rules of techno. Then you've got this one button and it's gone. And you can just hit the button again. Scoop up the lows, and back down. Let's bring in that bass. Scoop up the lows, and down. In combination with the quick perform effects, and turn them both off. So you go from blurry to full focus, you know? So, quick perform effects, all of those delays, Oxi Meta. Nice. Okay, and then there's the synth voice that's here. That's up on my number 4 slider. So this is an Incus going into a disting, which honestly I'm not actually using, which is going into one of the noise engineering effects. I think it's actually a Desmodus firmware that's launched. You see, the thing about these noise engineering things is that they're actually a platform that you can change the firmware of. And so one effect can become an entirely different effect. You can get all these little panels. And so if I wanted this Incus and Versio to become a Yester Versio, it really could not be easier. It's really just a USB to connect it to the browser. And within 30 seconds, you've changed it. So again, it's sequenced by this guy over here. And those triggers are coming out through the Oxi pipe over here. And so I can change the harshness by changing the oscillator here. I can change a lot of the characteristics of the sound here at the level of the oscillator. And then here I can kind of blur it. Like imagine I wanted to take this element out. I would maybe make it large and splashy. And then increase the dry wet. And increase the tone. So that it becomes really bright and thin. And now it's basically almost gone. Interestingly, everything in this entire rack also passes through this Magneto. I mean, not everything. It's on a send and return. This mixing desk can send signals there and back. So I can add delays, and I can add this spring reverb. No spring reverb. Lots of spring reverb. So you can imagine that you can create a pretty big wash of sound. And then with those Oxi effects, scoop up the lows. And sometimes you want to create a little bit of chaos. And then you turn off the effects. Or you mute this. And this for me has the same effect as blurring and unblurring a camera. So you go from blurry to sharp. That to me is what that Magneto is doing. It's making everything blurry, 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 blurry. And then when you take it away, it feels like sharpening an image, you know? Blurry, sharp. That's just the way I think about it anyway. In fact, my main issue with the modular is that I would like a few more effects that allows me to shape these synthesizer voices even a little bit more decisively. And that's why I'm getting another MS-22 filter, because the feeling of the disting just isn't doing it for me in a live performance. It doesn't react the way I would want it to. Anyway, let's talk about the fifth voice. What's the fifth voice? The fifth voice are these 3 silver units together. The Knight's Gallop, which creates Euclidean sequences into the Archer's Rig, into the Sarajevo delay. So these 2 are by Shakmat. This one is by Chaos Devices, and the Knight's Gallop sends out 2 Euclidean sequences that can both be polymetered against each other. One of the sequences can go to the open hi-hat, and the other one can go to the closed hi-hat. Okay, let's do the closed hi-hat. So right now, only the left channel, the out one, is sending sequences. Right? And so we're gonna do... Here, let me take a better sound. So now we've got only triggers coming out of the left one, which is for the closed hi-hat. So the decay parameter here doesn't matter. And they go into this delay. And I think the sweet spot for me is usually around here, because then you can also create these feedback washes if you want. And once it's feeding back, you can turn this and go. Sometimes in a break, that's an awesome sound. And then you add in some kind of an open hi-hat but it's a little bit of a polymeter. So let's go to the open hi-hat and say I want it every 6 steps, I want it to open up. So every time you see that light up, this is playing an open hi-hat. And when you open up the decay, that creates a bit of splashiness that's really tasty. You push these up. Notice that I don't even synchronize this to the tempo. I kind of like its looseness, and I know that it's gonna hit about a 16th note when it's in this area here. And so that's the rack. Live improvisational techno, a lot of territory to explore. Those of you with a lot of experience, maybe you have some advice. I think to get something smaller than the Magneto, because I'm using so much space just for that one. It's a beautiful sound, but it's just one simple function. And then I think I just want to expand the current voices that I have, not add more voices, because that's more complexity. And when you're on stage, that's, I think, a little bit too much to think about. There's already so much to think about when you're in front of an audience. You want to keep the, you know, the energy of the song flowing and moving. So at this moment, I feel like the 5 faders that I have is the right amount. It's a very good amount. I guess really my main conclusion is that this experiment has been validated and it really works and it's really cool. I just want more practice. If all goes well, on the 2nd of May, Circle will be in Belgium and we'll do a duo jam. Hopefully I can point you to that as well. And we'll do a duo jam on the Gimmick web radio in Brussels. If you don't follow that channel yet, do, because there's some really interesting sort of techno / art / all sorts of interesting music and sound showing up there. I'll be coming to Superbooth this year to geek out with you all over this stuff. If you are hosting techno parties and you're looking for a live act and I can contribute somehow, hit me up. And until next time, stay producing, be good to each other, and take care. Bye-bye.